Good evening, and welcome to the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District's Board of Trustee Candidate Forum for 2012. My name is Jason Culpepper, publisher for Community Impact Newspaper. Our newspaper believes in the importance of providing unbiased, relevant information such as the school district is providing you with tonight through this candidate forum. I will serve as the moderator for tonight's forum. It's an honor to have been asked back after moderating last year's forum. I am a graduate of Jersey Village High School and serve on the Cyfair Education Foundation Board of Trustees. I truly understand the tremendous education students in our community receive from Cyfair ISD, and I want to see that continue. Tonight's forum will provide each candidate an opportunity to introduce themselves and field questions from the audience. It is our hope that this forum allows each candidate to voice their positions and reason for pursuing a place on the school board, as well as give the public a chance to hear the candidates respond to questions of importance to the community. I would like to take this opportunity to mention that this forum is currently being broadcast live tonight over Channel 16 and will be rebroadcast throughout Election Day. The forum will also be available on Cyfair TV online, which can be found at www.cfisd.net. Tonight's process will be conducted as follows. The candidates will be given 2 minutes to simply introduce themselves and share any information they feel the community should know about their candidacy. Once we begin the question and answer portion of the forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Time will be kept by Donna Blowen, Secretary to the Superintendent, as well as Secretary to the Board of Trustees. You will notice a countdown clock in front of you. This countdown will give 2 minutes for your introduction as well as your answers to each question. You will not be cut off in the middle of a sentence or thought, but please wrap up your statement within the next few seconds. If a question is directed to a particular candidate, that candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Any candidate may offer a response to the question if they wish. I will alternate who answers first from question to question. The election will be held jointly with this year's general election. Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Early voting takes place from October 22nd to November 2nd. Times and locations of early voting may be obtained by visiting www.harrisvotes.com. You can also access Election Day voting sites at this website. I want to remind the audience, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and someone will bring you a question form. Before I introduce the candidates, this is a reminder to please silence your cell phone. At this time, I would like to introduce the candidates as they will appear on the ballot. For position 3, Darcy Mangoya, Lillian Wanjagi, Bill Morris, who is not in attendance tonight. For position 4, Kevin Hoffman and Angela Wesley. At this time, we'll allow each candidate to have a 2-minute introduction. Ms. Mangoya.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Darcy Mangoya, and I'm running for School Board Position 3. My husband Bob and I moved to Cyfair 34 years ago because we wanted a great education for our 2 children. We lived in Bon Air, Jersey Village, and now Champions. Our children graduated from Jersey Village High School in 93 and 96, and they received a quality education, and both were successful in college and are working as engineers. Throughout the time the kids were enrolled in Cyfair, I was active in PTO and booster clubs. When I started working at a local car dealership, I represented the car dealership on district committees. I was also asked to join the Cyfair Educational Foundation, where I served for 18 years. In 1998, I was selected as the president of the Cyfair Chamber, where I represented member businesses. The Chamber's boundaries are exactly the same as the ISD's, and a strong partnership had been forged between our members and the school district. I continued to build on that partnership. I wanted to mention 2 very special projects that I worked on. One was to lead the efforts to bring Cy-Fair College to our community. It was a wonderful opportunity for all of us to receive the education that we need. A second was to work on Freeport exemption. That was a way to eliminate inventory property taxes on some goods that were shipped out of state that helped our businesses that were currently in the area. Because of school financing regulations at the time, the property value decrease was made up by state funding and the $14 million contributed by those businesses in our area that would benefit from that. The inventory tax was a deterrent for people coming to this community, our business people, and the Chamber wanted to make sure that we were very business friendly. Currently, I'm the executive director of a Lone Star College Foundation working to raise money for all of our college students. I viewed access to education as a right and devoted many hours to ensuring all students have that access. I see my bid as a continuation of that service. I hope tonight you'll get to know me a little bit better and will feel comfortable voting for me. Thank you.
Ms. Wanjagi.
Thank you. I want to thank the administration for hosting this forum today, and I want to thank every single one of you for taking your time to come in the rain to this very important event. I also want to thank my family who's here today to support me, and in particular, I want to thank my parents who postponed their retirement to tomorrow. They're leaving out of the country tomorrow so that they could be here to support me, and I'm very grateful to them for their support. My name is Lillian Wanjagi. I am a graduate of Wingate University with a Bachelor of Science in Accounting and Computer Information Systems. I have a Master's in Business Administration, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate student at the University of Houston in Education Leadership. I have worked in higher education for the last 16 years in both public and private universities, and I currently work as an administrator at the University of Houston. However, the most important title that I hold is Mom. I am the mom to the sweetest third grader you have ever met. She is my inspiration and the reason that I'm running for this position. I am asking for your community trust to serve this board because I want to see our district continue in its striving for excellence. I deeply appreciate and respect the dedication of the current and past members, many of whom are here today, and the dedication they've shown our community by serving in this position. I believe that our world is changing to a point where educational needs are different today than they were several years ago. Our diversity is increasing and our technology is improving. The Board of Trustees need representatives with awareness who can bring new perspectives and new experience to the districts. Our students deserve a world-class education. It's not good enough to have the best facilities or even count our successes on the basis of how much it costs to educate a student. We need to continue to invest in high-quality academic programs to ensure that our students, who will be competing with students from all around the world, will be above their peers. I ask for your support, and I look forward to the next couple of hours that you would get to know me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wanjagi. Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, Jason. I want to also thank everybody for coming out tonight and thank the administration of Cy-Fair for hosting this event. My name is Kevin Hoffman. I'm a resident of the Fairfield community. I've been married to my wife, Angela, for 18 years. She's a former Cy-Fair ISD employee, worked as a paraprofessional for the special ed department. I have two children, Kevin and Kayla, a junior and a freshman at Cy Ranch High School. I also serve on the Booster Club associated with Cy Ranch High School. I have been involved in the Community Leadership Committee for Cy-Fair for 2 years. I've also been elected twice to the Fairfield Homeowners Association. Professionally, I work with the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation as the Deputy Executive Director of Reliant Park. I've been involved in public administration for over 20 years. I've also served on the Board of Education of the Houston Independent School District, in which I served for 8 years, as well as the Texas Association of School Boards, in which I served for 3 years. During that time, I had the honor to meet and work with Ms. Lyda Woodell, who is the exiting trustee for position 4. She's in the audience tonight, and I think she deserves a hand for her 13 years of commitment, dedication to our children. I I also started a nonprofit organization, the Barbara Jean Hoffman Memorial Foundation, which has provided over $500,000 for scholarships and school supplies to inner city kids. My involvement has been recognized by the United States Department of Education, United States Congress, the state of Texas, Harris County, as well as the city of Houston. I understand the problems facing public education. I offer my experience, proven leadership, and a conservative approach to fiscal management that's responsible and focused on student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wesley.
Thank you. I want to say thank you all for coming out this evening, and for those of you that are watching on TV or later on. I am Angela Wesley. I'm a proud mom of 5. My eldest has Down syndrome and in middle school. My youngest just started kindergarten this year. I work full time. I always have. I've held multiple jobs at one time if needed. I completed my bachelor's degree in summa cum laude, and this past June I completed my MBA with honors. Many times when I was going to school, I've been asked, how do you do it? How do you be a mom? How do you go to school at night? And how do you work full time? And I just shrug my shoulders and say, you got to do what you got to do, because you are the role model for your kids. And I'm my role model for my kids. I hope they can look at me and be proud of someone that they can hopefully succeed and go farther than I have. I started my community involvement back when I was in high school through with 4-H and FFA. And I think it's good for the kids to get out there with those programs. After high school, I joined the Navy for 8.5 years and came to Houston. I grew up and I matured, and I live by those Naval Corps values of honor, courage, and commitment. I've been an advocate since 1998, and my advocacy skills have only grown, expanded, and strengthened, which will help me succeed to do the best job as a representative of Cy-Fair. And I hope this evening I gain your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wesley. Before we begin the question portion of tonight's program, I want to make sure and include that these questions were submitted from the community to the district by email. You'll be receiving questions from the audience this evening, and I'm just shuffling the questions as we go along. I did not come up with these questions, and Marty and Kelly are both will be doing a great job tonight of making sure that if any are lumped into the same kind of category, that we make sure we get all the questions covered. Are there any questions of the candidates before we get started? No. Let's get started. Ms. Magoya, we'll start with you. What are your top priorities for Cy-Fair ISD?
I really believe that we need to make sure that our kids get the best quality education that they can, and that means working hard to provide all the resources that they need. At this current time, we have some inequitable funding that we need to look at. In the average, the state funds all school districts in the state of Texas $500 more than we receive, so we're at a $500 deficit. Tomball receives $1,200 more per student. I think in order to ensure that quality education, that's one of the first things we need to look at. We need to see what we can do to solve the problem of inequitable funding. Thank you.
Ms. Wanjagi?
I think that the school district needs to really invest in the quality of academic programs. The school district does really well in managing with very limited resources and taking that as far as it can. I think it's important for the district to continue to do over and above what the state requires, which are just minimum standards. Examples would be IB programs. I think we need to improve on the quality of our gifted and talented program. So we should focus on having nationally recognized academic programs. So a very important priority should be the quality of education. I think it's important to really focus the discussions on the achievements of our districts based on students rather than costs. It's important to be able to have programs that are worthy emulating across the country, not just in Texas. So the quality of education that our students receive would be a very important priority.
Mr. Hoffman.
Quality education is important, and in order to provide it, we have to make sure we are funded in an equitable manner from the state. Many folks in the community don't realize that the public education has, our dollars, $5.3 billion have been taken out of public education over the past couple of years. And that has yielded a situation in Cy-Fair in which we've lost over $100 million. So I think it's very important to work with our legislators in trying to make sure we shore up those lost funds. There is a projected surplus associated with their sales tax revenue, and I think it's important that we engage them in those conversations in trying to bring those dollars back to our schools so we can provide quality programs. I also think it's important to develop a comprehensive strategic master plan to manage the district's rapid growth as well as maintaining a high quality education that's currently provided. Thank you.
Ms. Wesley.
I would have to say education, and education is very broad and it goes through all aspects. Along with education is teamwork. Along with education, it includes the gifted and talented and the special education. I do see a lot of improvement in the special education and the quality and acceptance of all students. I would also like to say we need more teachers to provide that education. And if the teachers need extra paraprofessionals or extra co-teachers, then that's what the district should look at doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Ms. Wanjagi. What prior service have you had in Cy-Fair ISD or the Cypress-Fairbanks community?
I have served, I was the vice president of the PTO of my daughter's school. She went to a local school, a local charter school that's in the area. It's very important to me to be engaged in her education, so that's been an area that I've served. I'm very involved in my daughter's Girl Scout troop. I'm involved in her classroom and volunteer as a parent reader. I serve on the MUD board for our community over the financial matters of our MUD board, and those are just a few examples.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, I've served for the last 2 years on the Cy-Fair ISD Community Leadership Committee. We deal with legislative issues as well as the tough issues facing the district. I also served on the board of directors of our Homeowners Association in Fairfield, and I've been involved in youth sports programs as well as youth activities with my kids, either a sponsor or a volunteer, all of their lives. So I've been involved for a pretty long time. Thank you.
Ms. Wesley.
I'm currently on the Cy-Fair Booster Club for the Special Olympics. I'm hopefully going to win the presidency position for that booster club. I've participated in the classrooms, in the PTOs for the children's schools, and I'm currently a member and a youth leader for the Family of Faith Lutheran Church that's here in Cy-Fair.
Mrs. Mongoya.
I mentioned several of the things that I've been working on when I was at the chamber, but I also would like to point out that I was a Jersey Village City of Council person and that I also substitute taught when my kids were little. It was a great flexible career that I could stay at home a little bit longer. In addition, I'm currently a secretary of my Homeowners Association. I work at the Northwest Harris County Division of American Heart Association as a volunteer. I've stayed active in lots of different clubs and organizations, especially since my kids are grown up and I have a little bit more time now. Thank you.
All right, next question. What experience do you have working as a positive member of a successful team? Mr. Hoffman, we'll begin with you.
Well, the best experience I've had working as a member of a positive team has been my family. It's as anyone knows, just being married and having kids, you have to be a team. Everybody has to be in it for everyone else. So that's one. The next, of course, is being on the Board of Education of Houston Independent School District. We were very successful, especially in the early 2000s, in winning the Broad Prize, which is a nationally honored award for large urban school districts in being able to work comprehensively towards school reform. So I'm very proud of that.
Ms. Wesley.
I'm proud of my being a successful team member of the United States Navy with multiple duty stations and the minimum personnel to get a project done, especially when you have the battleship quarters and the drills. You need the teamwork, and so we successfully participate in that. I've participated with a lot of projects with the Navy. Even at work now, you have our group is only 2 people, and we're managing 47 projects. It's not one person, and it's a group. So successfully my place of employment is where I succeed. And like Kevin said, family. The 5 little ones have to have someone to look up to, and someone has to be the ringleader. So I do haul them around, and I guess we're a good team. Thank you.
Mrs. Magoya.
I think that you always accomplish more by being a member of a team, that everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, and you can work together in a cohesive way to accomplish a lot more. I think often of the works we did at the Chamber where different people did different parts of it, and because of that we were successful. I see that in my foundation work. I saw it on Jersey Village City Council. In many times you have to look and build a consensus and find the right solution. I've had a lot of experience finding that right solution and feel like I'm a good team member as well as a team leader.
Ms. Wanjagi.
My current position, I recently did a deployment of software that was rolled out institution-wide. That we have on our campus, we have about 50,000 people, so students, staff, faculty were impacted by this project that I was managing. Lots of resistance to change, so managing that, it was a 2.5-year-long project. So as a team leader of that project, I considered it successful. It was a successful implementation, working to get everybody on board to understand the need for the change. Sometimes change is hard, so that would be an example of working on a successful team. I'm also a volunteer in my church and serve on the leadership team, and so that's working with a lot of volunteers who are not paid to do what they do. So, and I consider that very successful to get people to volunteer and to sacrifice their own time.
Our next question: what role do you believe the fine arts and athletics serves in the total education of students, and do you support the maintaining of these programs? Ms. Wesley, we'll begin with you.
As you were asking the question, the first thing that came to mind is teamwork. If you don't have those programs, then you're lacking a big chunk of social development, and we won't see many leaders in the workplace. I do support those programs, and I would like to see more interaction between the different students of the regular education and the special needs education, and hopefully open that up to everyone and not just separate segregations like we currently have. So again, even in the workplace, you come across many cultures and many diversities, and if we don't start at the young age, then we're going to lose a big chunk for our students.
Mrs. Mungoya.
I think that a well-rounded student is a great student, and I think all students need to have lots of different opportunities to excel, and they need lots of different experiences that can prepare them to go further in life. I think athletics are important. I think fine arts, all kinds of different clubs and booster clubs, build our students, make them more rounded, and make them more successful as they move into college and into the workplace.
Ms. Wanjagi.
The athletics question, since this is Texas, I think that may be a trick question, but I support both those programs, and I think it's really important to have them both. I think what's critical to note is the priority they have in our funding. So, for example, in Cyfair, we spend $82 a student on the athletics programs, and we spend $55 a student on gifted and talented education. In looking at those numbers, that doesn't really tell me why the athletics priority would be higher than gifted and talented. But in my mind, that bears further examination because the core mission of our school, of our district, is academics. Athletics are really important. I think it's important to provide students who are talented in athletics the opportunity to do so. But I think they need to be prioritized in the right place. The same for the arts. The arts are very important. We have lots of talented students who are gifted in art, and so that's an important academic priority to fund appropriately.
Mr. Hoffman.
Well, Jason, you're looking at somebody who was convinced back in the 80s in high school he was going to be the next Magic Johnson. And the reason he thought that was because he was given the opportunity to be involved in sports in high school, basketball, football, track. I was also involved in theater and the fine arts. I think it's absolutely critical in order for us to develop well-rounded students to have these programs. And I think at the end of the day, what the community is interested in having are folks that have a skill set as well as life experiences across the board. And I believe the more extracurricular activities we can provide for our children, the better off our community will be at the end of the day.
Our next question. As you all know, for the last several years, the district has received less funding from the state. Less funding, excuse me. Would you consider doing away with the optional homestead exemption, a portion of the exemption, or would you never cut the exemption no matter how bad the district's financial funding situation becomes? Ms. Migoya.
I support the homestead exemption we currently have. I think it's a real asset for our community. Our taxpayers appreciate it, and I think it attracts community members here that want to live in our area. It's a real tax savings for many of us. I can't imagine a situation where I would even consider changing that.
Ms. Wanjagi?
I support keeping the optional homestead exemption, and at no circumstances would warrant taking that away.
Mr. Hoffman?
As a homeowner, I also support homestead exemption. You know, when you're on a governing board, you at times are faced with absolutely critical decisions regarding the direction of the district. And I feel real strongly that homestead exemptions are something that are about as sacred as we can have as it relates to maintaining them. So I'm very much supporting of maintaining them.
Ms. Wesley?
We need to keep the homestead exemption, no doubt about it. If for some reason the board decides to get rid of it, what's the few extra dollars? Because it's only going to patch the hole for a little bit, and it's not going to correct the spending and the budget overall. So the homestead exemption is not an option of getting rid of.
Our next question. Do you believe Cyfair ISD should give the 3% proposed raise next year to staff? Let me repeat the question. Do you believe Cyfair ISD should give the 3% proposed raise next year to staff? Why or why not? Ms. Wanjagi, we'll begin with you.
I would support it because I think it is important to retain qualified staff, and anytime you lose talent, there's an opportunity cost associated with losing staff to other districts, so there's a cost associated with not giving the raise. I think it's important to keep with the quality of life increases, so that's important so that our teachers and our staff are able to live a quality lifestyle, so I would support that.
Mr. Hoffman.
I think a pay increase for our teachers is absolutely necessary. That's where the rubber meets the road, and the reality of the situation is we know our teachers are underpaid as compared to other professions. So whenever given the opportunity to provide either a cost of living increase or a performance increase, I'm there to support it.
Ms. Wesley.
I'm supportive of it. If anything, I would probably challenge and see if we can't do a 4 or 5% raise. Cost of living has gone up, so if we give the teachers a 3% like most employees in Houston are receiving, they're still going to be disgruntled because everything else is going up. So why not go above and beyond and look at maybe a 4 or even 5%?
Mrs. Mongoya.
I wish Mr. Morris was here to answer that question. You know that he has twice voted against teacher raises. I want to make sure all of you know that. I think the most important thing that we need to do is attract and retain great teachers. And I would certainly vote for the 3% raise in a balanced budget that is being thought about and considered for next year.
Next question. Would you support a salary structure for teachers based upon performance rather than tenure? Mr. Hoffman.
That's a good question. There are a lot of teachers out there that feel very strongly that the tenure issue should weigh heavily as compared to performance. However, I really feel that at the end of the day, our objective is to provide the best education for our kids, and the best way to recognize that is through each classroom and assessing each teacher associated with it. I do think there is value with tenure, and I also think there's absolute value with performance. So I would like to see a combination that makes sense and allows growth within the district. There's an average of the average tenure of a teacher coming into the district right out of college is about 5 years, and we have to be able to maintain or develop new incentives to keep them to stay, especially our good teachers.
Ms. Wesley.
Kevin summed it up pretty good. Performance and tenure needs to go hand in hand. Many employees that you talk to, you ask them how long have they been at a company, and many of them will say 15 years. And they'll be disgruntled about it. So I'll say, well, have you looked somewhere else? No, I've been invested in the company. At the same time, they're looking for something, and many companies aren't giving them a 10-year incentive. And many companies are looking at that 10-year incentive, and they're debating and valuing the person on the performance. So it needs to go hand in hand, like Kevin said.
Ms. Mongoya.
Thank you. I have a lot of concern about thinking about how we can evaluate teachers based on performance when the raw materials that they work with are different in every single classroom. And I worry that we wouldn't be able to figure out what a proper and good assessment would be. And I do understand in the workplace that we typically pay on performance. And that is what I've typically been paid and how I've been typically paid. But I want to make sure that if we figure out a system to assess based on performance, that we consider that our different students are in different classrooms in different circumstances with different abilities. And I want to respect that and honor that.
Ms. Wanjagi.
Yes, I would support performance-based evaluation for teachers. And Darcy also said it well, that the system itself and how you would define that performance would be a very important component of that. I would actually argue, in addition, that paying to a high-performing teacher and a low-performing teacher at the same level is actually a demotivating factor, so it's really important to pay based on performance.
What do you feel are the strengths of Cy-Fair ISD, and what are our main challenges? Ms. Wesley, we'll begin with you.
The strengths of Cypher. I don't know. Sorry. The challenges is definitely going to be many of the special education students see many challenges with lack of support and lack of services and lack of leadership. We cleared up the sex education portion of it for this part of the year, so that's going to be a challenge. I guess the strengths is really the students participating in the sports and giving Cypher a good name when they are competing and doing the good leadership for us.
Ms. Mongoya?
I think definitely the quality of education that we provide is our greatest strength. And I'll tell you a great story. Megan's a freshman in college, and she calls me, and she asked me to send her notes from her chemistry class because the kids that were in college with her didn't have the background that she did in chemistry because of Mrs. Campbell in Jersey Village. And I think that our teachers devote a lot to our students. They really nurture them and instruct them and help them and motivate them. And that is a great strength for all of us. I think our challenges include our growth and our diversity and the lack of funding for everything that we need to do.
Ms. Wanjagi?
I think our strengths are that we have been able to do a lot with very little. So twice the state comptroller has recognized the school district for educating our students for one of the lowest costs in the entire state for a district our size. So I think it is commendable how fiscally responsible our school district is. So that's a wonderful accomplishment for our district. I think our reputation is a wonderful strength. We have a reputation of being an excellent school district, and it's something that we need to work to continue to improve. The challenges have been mentioned here before, the exponential growth in a very short amount of time. So strategic planning is really significant as we continue to grow exponentially because of those strengths that we have as a district. Some of the other challenges that we have goes beyond the school district itself. I think education in Texas needs major reform beyond the jurisdiction of the board. When you talk about the high-stakes testing and how that impacts our students, the mandates from the state and from the federal government impact our school district. So all those things are challenges beyond the jurisdiction of this board, but that we're going to face as a district. A challenge that is really important to me is that I think we need to continue to invest in academic programs over and beyond the state minimum, expectations. I think it would be good for the district to have dual language programs, IB programs, and some of those things that we think of when we think of a high quality education. So.
Mr. Hoffman?
Well, there's not a lot I can add to what's already been said, but I can say after having an opportunity to observe school districts across the country, the one thing that stands out with Cy-Fair is absolutely, as Darcy mentioned, the quality of education that's provided by the teachers and the leadership, but also the community involvement of the parents and the teamwork associated with making sure our kids are provided a quality education. It is amazing to see the community involvement as well as the teachers and educators' dedication to our school district. The challenges are, of course, the funding issues as it relates to the state, as well as some of the other issues that are out there regarding growth and regarding how to deal with transitioning into being what at the end of the day is a large urban school district. So above and beyond everything else, I think it's real important to mention that Cy-Fair is in a very unique situation to be so large and have so many good community and parental involvement, so much good parental and community involvement along working in tandem, I should say, with our teachers and our administrators.
Our next question. Considering your work and family obligations, please explain how you will be able to devote the time necessary to to be an effective Cy-Fair ISD board member? Mrs. Mongoya, we'll begin with you.
Thanks. Well, time management is a hard thing to do, but it's something that you have to do. I've been able to juggle a lot of things in my career and with my family. I do have a slight advantage above the other three people here tonight that my children are grown up and not living at home. And I respect and very much admire their commitment to go through this and to serve on a school board when you have your kiddos at home and they need lots of attention too. I just think it's just a way of working and making sure that you accomplish and multitask and get everything done. And I tell you, I will spend the time that is needed to be a good trustee.
Ms. Wanjagi?
Yes. When I made the decision to run, I made the commitment that if I were to be elected, that I would be a well-prepared, well-informed board member, because it is the trust of the people that you would be responsible for. So I would be committed to making sure that whatever it took in terms of time, that I would be committed. I would be committed to that. In addition, I do think that being a parent does not take away from that role, and instead, it actually informs that role, because having a child in the district helps understand the day-to-day and the challenges in a very real way. So for me, I consider that a plus and my real motivation for wanting to be in this position. So.
Mr. Hoffman?
With an understanding on what it takes in order to serve on a $729 million organization, with that understanding, you have to really make sure your time issues are addressed before you make the decision. And I had an opportunity to sit down with my wife again, and we agreed that there was no good reason for me not to engage, and she is signed on to help as well as work, because as we all know, being on the Board of Education of a school district in Texas is not a paying job. You have to have a paying job to pay the bills. So you have to be able to make sure those areas are addressed and are comfortable with what you're getting ready to do. And I've been very fortunate to not only have those entities or my wife and the folks at work give me the green light, but they've been very supportive as well, and I'm looking forward to it.
Ms. Wesley?
I hope I've proved myself, especially to my family, that I am committed to this. If I could go to college, raise a family, work full-time, and do that with honors, with multiple Dean's List letters, I believe I can do this. If I need to take vacation days to visit schools and facilities, I have no problem doing that. I did enjoy my time when I visited the Eldridge Bus Barn and found out that they have a bus rodeo. So I would love to visit that rodeo event. It sounds interesting. But a person to do this does need to be a multitasker, and I know I proved that to my family, and hopefully I can prove that to you guys.
Next question. Do you believe that trustees should serve as good examples to students and district constituents in their actions and words at board meetings towards school district employees and other trustees? Ms. Wanjagi?
Absolutely. And I think failure to do so should disqualify you from the board. It's very important to be a good example.
Mr. Hoffman?
Absolutely. You set the example, and the leadership as well as everyone else in the organization follows your lead based on your behavior.
Ms. Wesley?
Yes. It's kind of like being a parent. You kind of have to sit back and think about what you're doing, especially when your kids are, around. I've noticed probably some parents act differently when their kids are around and when they're not around. And when you're a leader for Cy-Fair, you definitely have to act like a leader, because your peers look up to you, and so do the younger generations.
Ms. Mongoya?
Well, again, I wish Mr. Morris was here. One of the reasons I decided to run for the board was after watching on TV his behavior at the May board meeting. It was belligerent, it was disrespectful, and he had no sense of decorum. I think it's very, very important that we do not bully each other, just as we don't want our students to bully each other. We need to always display our best behavior. We need to be the best example of how to act in our schools.
Next question. It's a little long, so if you need me to repeat it halfway through, don't hesitate to ask. How can you ensure the district's mission of Cyfair ISD applies to all students, including special education students? The mission reads, the district will provide the environment and learning opportunities for all students so that, as graduates, they will possess the qualities which will enable them to live meaningfully and successfully in society and in the workplace. Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, we're going to ask you to repeat that question.
Ready? How can you ensure the district's mission of Cyfair ISD applies to all students, including special education students?
Well, I think it, once again, as we were talking about before, it all starts at the top. I think every program within the district needs to be made of the utmost priority. Special education, you know, I've seen my wife work as a paraprofessional in special education. I've seen what she has to deal with. I've seen the support that's necessary to give folks that are engaged in that type of program and those types of program, as well as other programs. So I think it's very important that the board identify all of our programs as high priorities and do the best we can to go above and beyond the call associated with state requirements, associated with federal requirements, in trying to maintain the resources necessary to provide the service.
Ms. Wesley.
I would say teachers. We need the teachers there to educate the students. It shouldn't just be left up to one certain classroom to educate them. All the teachers should get the training so that way the students can feel like they're accepted in each classroom that they go to. So that does start with the leadership, and that also includes training and also recognition. The last board meeting I went to in May showed no recognition of the Special Olympics for Cyfair. Athletes within the schools that were representing Cyfair, and there's no recognition. So the all at that board meeting did not happen, and I will encourage the school district and the board to include the all.
Mrs. Mongoya.
Thank you. You know, I had a chance to visit the Carlton Center yesterday, and I was very impressed with the way that they were working to make sure that they looked at each task and each educational requirement for each of their students and made sure that those students were exposed to what they needed. One of the things that was most impressive was the way that they were using technology, just as you would in a regular ed classroom. I think Cyfair does a good job with special ed and with many of our different programs. I would want to continue to build on that and always respect and nurture the fact that all students need whatever accommodations, whatever special equipment, whatever special opportunities that are best for them. I've been very impressed as I've looked at life skill classes and what's being taught there, and how the curriculum is trying to follow as closely as possible the required curriculum for all schools. I think all of those populations need to be served in the best way possible, and I would continue to encourage that and build on the base that we've already established.
Ms. Wanjagi.
I think this mission statement is a simple sentence, but it is a very weighty sentence because it takes a lot of different things to educate all students. We have a lot of different types of students. We have special education was called out, gifted and talented education, students who are artsy, students who lean on the vocational type of programs. So it is it's a challenge from a pedagogy standpoint to address all those students. So I think as a board, the way that we do that is, first of all, I think to recognize that our teachers who are trained in the pedagogy of addressing all those different needs of the students, and to be able to have them at the table in the discussions regarding instruction and what works best in all the different types, with all the different types of learners. I think we need to be a data-driven district. We need to make decisions based on research. The students that we are educating today are going to be in fields that probably don't even exist today. They're going to be doing things a lot differently than we did them in school. So rather than use maybe cliches and how we do things, I think we need to be a very data-driven district, so that we can be able to keep up with the different ways of doing things, different learning methodologies that we could adopt. And I think we need to rely heavily on the teachers who are specially trained to be able to address the pedagogy or the art and science of teaching. So.
Next question. If you were asked to vote on implementation of a highly sensitive program like the new sex education program, what information would you request to make a decision? Ms. Wesley?
You'd have to look at what you're going to be teaching. So I would request the textbooks or the websites, or even bring in the person that's presenting the material, possibly even visiting one of the lectures. You have to look at it, and you have to think of it as, a student. See, it's something you would have to investigate. And if it's reading the material and actually taking the test, then that's what's needed. So it's actually putting yourself in the mindset of the student.
Mrs. Mongoya?
Well, I was at the board meeting when they discussed the process that the board used and the administration used to decide on this particular program. And, frankly, I was impressed with the very strategic way that they looked at it. They had a life health science committee that reviewed the curriculum. They had an additional parent committee of 60 people that approved the curriculum. So that process to me seemed like a good process. You'd want to make sure that there was input from your appropriate advisory committees and from your parents. I think in this particular case there was just a breakdown at the communications. Many parents didn't realize it was new and revised curriculum, and that they needed to take a look at it before they made a decision as to whether or not their child would be seeing that curriculum. The good news is there was a slowdown in that launching of that curriculum, and the children are not going to be using that particular curriculum right now. There'll be a further evaluation. So the process looked good, and I would always look at the process and what are we doing to review things, and how many people are giving input, and what is the direction that we want to go in.
Ms. Wanjagi?
Okay. I would want to know, I would go back to the beginning of the decision, and I would want to know what options were considered. I think when you're considering a change, it's not enough just to evaluate one thing. So it would be important to look at what options were considered. I think it would be important to look at the material themselves. I think it would be important to look at documented results in terms of effectiveness and why a certain option was selected. I think the parental involvement piece is very, very significant. And in the particular example given, like the sex education, I think it's there were lots of parents involved in the volunteer committee, and that's very, very commendable that they put in many, many hours considering those options. But I think it's just important to make the extra effort to make sure that as many people are aware as possible, because they're stakeholders in that decision and it's their children. So I think it's really important. So I would want to make sure that all the interested parties had an opportunity to review and comment on the material. And then as a board member, I think it would be very important to have read and be aware of what the content and what the decision is. So,
Mr. Hoffman.
sensitive subjects, it's very important. I have a philosophy as it relates to dealing with sensitive subjects, especially at the governance level. It's very important that we get everybody in the room, we share, we compare, we concoct, and we adopt an idea. And those are the key elements in making sure whatever we're rolling out, everyone is aware of, as opposed to hide, decide, declare, and defend. The community, our parents, our trustees, our administrators, it's very important that we are all involved in the process in developing a solution for sensitive issues. Are we going to make everybody happy 100% of the time? Probably not. But as long as we keep in the back of our minds that we are going to share, compare, and concoct ideas and work together cohesively as a team of parents, a team of educators, in order to better provide an educational service to our kids, we will all be okay. Thank you.
Next question. How do you feel about the proposed voucher system in Texas, where money would be removed from Cypher ISD and given to parents to pay for private school or charter school tuition? And what will you do to support vouchers or work against the passage of vouchers? Mrs. Magoya.
I have a difficult time thinking that we need to have vouchers when we ourselves, all of our public schools, do not have all the resources, the financial resources that we need. I also have difficulty thinking about if we're using taxpayer money with vouchers on private schools, what system of accountability are those schools under? Will they still have the same testing? Will we have to review them and rank them and disclose information about them? On the whole, I find that there's more negative about vouchers than positive, and I would probably not be inclined to support vouchers.
Ms. Wanjagi.
I think school vouchers, that's an interesting topic. Again, it would be outside the purview of the school board, but it's an important consideration because I think parents have the final authority on what their educational choice for their child is. I would support school vouchers because every parent can decide what's the best option for for their student. When I think about this issue, and it's come up, I think, in every single board election, I think in the higher education where I work, when you think of Pell Grants, for example, Pell Grants are available to any student to go to any institution. They can go to a cosmetic school, they can go to Harvard, they can go to a dental school, they can go to UT Austin. It doesn't matter. It's all federal grant money. And so the idea that, from my perspective as a school district, and I've chosen public education for my child, the idea that money would follow a student would only make me want to make sure that our school district is so desirable that parents would choose us. So the idea of parents choosing a different option for their children would not be something that I would consider threatening for our school district. I would want us to make sure that we work on the quality of the education that we provide, that parents would want to stay in the school district if that choice were available. Now, from a personal standpoint, if the tax dollars were available outside of a public school system, I think it would be critical that there's the necessary accountability, and so the management of that, which again would be beyond the school board, would be really critical. But I support the decision for a parent to decide what educational environment is best for them, and their taxation equals their representation.
Mr. Hoffman.
I support school choice as well, just not at the expense of our public schools. Besides the fact that what is being proposed or what is being talked about is taking money out of an already struggling school system across the state. It's not just unique to Cy-Fair. There are some very serious vetting issues that have to take place before this discussion even begins. And those vetting issues deal with oversight. As many of us know, we've seen private school tragedies out there that have happened. We've seen how folks have taken advantage of the opportunity to use public tax money because there hasn't been any adequate oversight. There's an accountability issue, as Darcy meant, and there's also transparency. You know, if you are going to be receiving tax dollars, you need to be subject to the same scrutiny that tax entities are that they have. There's a lot of questions that have to be answered before you go further down that road. But again, you know, I sincerely believe in school choice, but not at the expense of our public schools. Thank you.
Ms. Wesley?
The first question that comes to mind is who's going to fund those vouchers? Is it going to be from the state level, or is it going to come from the actual district itself? As a parent, I would say yes, go for it, especially for those special education students that don't feel comfortable about being the parents having their child educated in Cy-Fair, especially with the lawsuit that happened about a year and a half ago. Some of those parents need the extra funding, so those vouchers would come in play and would help. But as a taxpayer, I would question it, and I would really ask and think about what is going to be your procedures in place to make sure that the vouchers are being used in the proper way. There's much fraud going on, and as a taxpayer, I would question, is that parent really using the voucher, or are they keeping the voucher and sending their kid off to another school? So more discussion and more logistics would have to be placed out.
What perspective do you hope to bring to the board, and what do you feel is the most important role of a board member? Ms. Wanjagi.
I believe that the most critical part of a board member's job, I think, is to be a support to the district. Primary responsibility is to allocate the resources to the priorities of the district. So I think it's important to be able to understand what's important in the district so that you're able to make those budget decisions in an informed kind of manner. I think it's very important to make sure that you have a good understanding of all the impact of the decisions that you make. So I think it's important to be very well prepared, to be well informed. I think it's better to defer decisions when you don't have all the information than to make a quick decision and try to fix it later. So I think it's the number one important reason is to make sure that we keep the mission that we just talked about earlier, to make sure that we keep that a priority in the funding allocation, in the budget discussions, and to make sure that we meet the academic mission of our schools. So.
Mr. Hoffman?
I think your main objective is to stay focused on your number one mission, and that's providing a quality education to our kids. And everything you do, every decision you make, every person or every discussion you have, every community forum you have has to be based on, is this in the best interest of our students?
Ms. Wesley?
As a perspective, I'd be bringing my thoughts and ideas as a parent, as a taxpayer, and a citizen of Cy-Fair. Being well informed about each matter is good, and also the objective is, the fiduciary duties to make sure that the money is being spent in the best manner.
Mrs. Mongoya?
I would think it's most important to always think about the results that would happen with your decisions to the students. What is the impact on the students? How can we best keep the quality of education for all of our students available? I think the governance responsibilities, including looking at budget and approving contracts, hiring the superintendent, the attorney, those various obligations are very important. As a board member, you need to spend the time researching the information, gathering the information, and making the best decision that you can based on that.
Our next question. Many parents feel that every child should have a textbook to take home, even though they are no longer totally funded by the state. How do you respond to these parents' requests?
Well,
Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah. Well, as a CLC member and as an involved parent, I can tell you that if a parent wants their child to have a textbook, that parent needs to go to the principal, go to the teacher, and ask. There is a policy in Cy-Fair that allows the child to have a textbook if they ask for a textbook in a situation in which it's not being provided. One of the issues that I think that the school district struggles with is making sure communication is spread throughout the community to make sure everyone knows this, not only in the community, though, but also in the schools. We probably have some situations where some teachers aren't familiar with the policies and the process associated with it. But as it relates to textbooks, regarding classes that have textbooks available, if that child's parent, if that wants to have a textbook, they can ask. And quite frankly, I have 2 kids that are in the system, and we decided it was in our best interest for our kids to have a couple of books for a couple of classes that they have, and we asked and we received. So I'm not just talking. I've also practiced the policy.
Ms. Wesley.
That policy is new to me. I've actually seen the principal say, well, it's the district, we don't have it. Textbooks, if it is a matter of funding, if the district or the school had a budget and purchased 10 every year, they'd have enough for the students. I've noticed my kids coming home with photographed 8 by 11 sheets, and we are supposed to help them do their homework on that. And 2 problems a night is not considered very good homework nor an educational standard that I'm proud of. I believe the district should look at the textbooks. I know a lot of them want to push for the iPads and the laptops and the technology, but then again, it's more of a, oh wow, I've got a technological tech book. It's not always good that way. So I think we should look at textbooks.
Ms. Mangoya.
Since we do have a policy that allows parents to get those textbooks, I'm very much in agreement with that. I'm kind of old-fashioned, like to put my hands on books and read them and see the chapters and the pictures. Because we have that ability here, I think it's a good thing, and I encourage those parents that are struggling with that to talk to their principal and make sure that they do get what they need for their student.
I support the decision to look at new ways of getting the information to the students. I think I stated earlier the way that students learn has changed. So I support the district in moving towards technology, and it's wonderful to be able to have provisions for different needs that may cause a student to want to have a physical book. It could be learning disabilities, it could be preference, but if they impact the student's academic performance in any way, it's wonderful to know that there's a provision for that. So that's a wonderful district decision.
Next question. How will you handle situations where you may disagree with decisions the board has made or positions of other members? Ms. Wesley?
You have to sit and analyze it and think about it. Sometimes, even in family discussions, you hear something and we right away want to stand up for what we believe in. But at the same time, you can always learn something from someone else's opinion and look at it from a different perspective. So I would say if you're not happy with that comment, it's always good to revisit it. But I would say take a breath and think about it and discuss it civilized as leaders.
Ms. Mangoya?
I think in the discussion stage, everybody needs to state their opinion. They need to give all the reasons. Everyone needs to understand how everyone else feels, but it has to be done with respect. And once a decision is made, it is a decision of the school board, and you need to support that decision. Sometimes when I was on city council in Jersey Village, I wouldn't exactly agree with the position that was decided by the majority, but I knew it was what we needed to do because That was the new law or the new ordinance. You need to support those group decisions once you've had a thorough discussion and aired out all of the different scenarios and points about it.
Ms. Wanjagi.
I think it's a very good idea to actually have different opinions. That's the idea of having people from different perspectives to bring multiple perspectives and possible solutions to a discussion. It's important to do this professionally, diplomatically, and in a way that helps each person be able to understand the different perspective. And like Darcy said, once a decision that is made, I think it's important to be supportive, of the decision. It works this way in my workplace and in every workplace that I've been. But sometimes decisions are made that may be contrary to your personal opinion, but it's really important to be supportive of the decision. So,
Mr. Hoffman.
Well, I've been married for 18 years. And above and beyond that, one of the things you learn in life is that you can agree to disagree, and you can disagree without being disagreeable. It's very important to move forward in decisions that are made regarding our kids, whether it's at the house or at the board table.
Next question. Are you willing to give employees a voice in the decision-making process before decisions are made? Ms. Migoya.
Well, gosh, I hope that employees do feel comfortable talking to their principals, talking to their campuses, talking to the board members about things that are going on. I do think that decisions that the board members make are based on all kinds of input and all kinds of opinions. So I would be comfortable listening to people and what they have to say. That doesn't mean I would always agree with them, but I think open discussion is always a good thing.
I think it's important to consider the input of the people actually involved in the day-to-day work. So yes, I would very much welcome that.
Once again, share, compare, concoct, and adopt ideas with everybody in order to provide the best decision for our kids.
Ms. Wesley.
Definitely. Sometimes we assume that green pasture is on the other side of the fence, and without fully educating and finding someone else's perspective, we could be blindsided. So I definitely recommend that.
What experience do you have in the governance of public or private organizations? Ms. Wanjagi.
One of my roles now, I work to make sure that not just the University of Houston, but the University of Houston system, so all our components, Victoria, Clear Lake, Cinco Ranch, Sugar Land, have approval for all the facilities and the board projects that we work. So I work very closely with our Board of Regents. I'm also responsible for making sure that we have state approval who funds our projects to make sure that we have state approval. So I'm responsible for making sure that as an institution, we meet the standards set by the state and by the coordinating board so that we're able to get facilities. So I do this every day for a living, and so I understand the constraints of working with governing boards in a public entity.
Mr. Hoffman.
Well, as it relates to the private sector, I've worked as a cost schedule analyst for Westinghouse Marine Division in maintaining budgets associated with ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So that's in the private sector. The nonprofit organization, I have my own nonprofit organization, which has raised over $500,000 for scholarships and school supplies, and we have a board associated with that. I'm the chairman of the board. We go through audits. It's very important to maintain that. In the public sector, I've been the director of one of the largest departments in Harris County, Facilities and Property Management, in which we had over 300 employees, as well as a $67 million budget. As well as what I'm doing now as Deputy Executive Director for Reliant Park. I was on the project team that originally built the stadium for $450 million, making sure these types of projects are scheduled to come online, on time, and on budget. So I have about 25 years, now that I'm thinking about 25 years of vast experience in governance, money management in the private sector, as well as nonprofit and the public sector.
Ms. Wesley.
I've sat on the Down Syndrome Association board, so I've sat on the nonprofit aspect of it for the governance. Personally, I haven't had much experience. Currently in the position, I guess the governance part of it is dealing with certifications, which doesn't really have much to do with education, but it is another aspect, and I'm willing to learn. So if I need to educate myself in that area, I definitely will.
Mrs. Mongoya.
I've had a chance to serve on City Council in Jersey Village, which was a great governance experience. I've served on numerous nonprofit boards, and that has also been very helpful. And I've sat on the other side as a staff person. I'm currently the executive director of the Lone Star College Foundation, and I have a board that works with me and that is responsible for our fiduciary roles and for fundraising and all kinds of things. So I've seen it from both sides. I feel I have a really well-rounded experience with governments and understand how important it is to make sure that above all we respect our mission and are responsible with the money that we have.
Next question. What is your view of separation of church and state when it comes to making public education policy decisions? Will you allow your personal religious beliefs to influence your decision making? Mr. Hoffman.
I believe in separation of church and state.
Ms. Wesley.
It's a tough one. You're going to have some people that love you when you say this and you hate you when you say it. I believe in saying a prayer before anything, but as for putting my religious views on someone else, I don't recommend it. So I guess, but at the same time, if you do a state decision, you need to respect those of the religious decision as well. So I am undecided.
Ms. Mongoya.
I believe in the separation of church and state. I have been impressed when I've gone to all the schools during morning announcements. There's always a moment of silence. It seems like a very, very long moment, but they tell me it's only a minute. But I think it's important for all of us to have a respectful environment where all people feel comfortable, and for that reason I do agree that we need to separate religion out of the school day.
Ms. Wanjagi.
On a public level, I do believe in the constraints put upon the school based on law. So if the law says that it's a moment of silence, it is a moment of silence. So it's important as a board member to uphold all the rules required by TEA, required by the state. As a person, I am a person of faith, and I always, no matter where I am, I act based on the tenets of that faith, but never in violation of the rules that constrain education or workplace or whatever the case may be.
Next question. Rank the following in order of importance to you and explain why. Taxpayer, students, staff. Ms. Wesley?
The student, staff, and then student, taxpayers, and staff. Students are number one. I truly believe that we are making our new leaders. Next would be, I forgot what I said. I guess the staff and the taxpayers, it's like hand in hand. We have a fiduciary commitment to the taxpayer, so we aren't just spending money unwisely, but at the same time, the staff needs our support as well. So after saying that, I would say students, staff, and taxpayers.
Ms. Mongoya.
I would say students, staff, and taxpayers. I think the first thing that we always need to think about is the education that we provide for our students. And I think it goes hand in hand that we have to support our teachers and make sure that they have the resources that they need, because frankly that's really going to make the difference in the classroom is the teachers. And I do think we have to be responsible to the taxpayers and make sure that we spend money effectively and efficiently.
I'm going to say students, staff, and taxpayer, and hope that staff includes teachers, because that's the reason why the school district exists. So students, staff, including teachers, then taxpayers.
You know, we're all there for the students, but the taxpayers and staff are important as well. And it is very important that the students, the taxpayers, as well as staff, have our support in making decisions. And it's also important that all entities involved understand why we are all there and what our main objective is. It's very hard and borderline unfair to pick one in front of the other, but at the end of the day, we are there for the students, and everybody, if we work as a team, can meet our objectives in making sure everyone is taken care of.
These next few questions will be directed at specific candidates. I want to remind you that any candidate can respond to this question at the conclusion of the 2 minutes from the specific candidate. Ms. Wesley, it has been said you are running for the board because you have children in special education and you are not happy with the education they are receiving. Is this the main reason you are running for the school board?
It is one of the main reasons, yes. Now that I've completed my MBA and I can really sit down and handle all my children's problems and issues in school, it's been an delightful time going to class myself and being a parent. But as I see the differences between a special ed student and a normal student, and there shouldn't be a direct line in between the two, as the mission of the district says all students, and it's sometimes some students, so it is one.
This next question is for Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Wesley. Mr. Hoffman, you will answer first. While accepting campaign funding, just one moment. Let me provide clarification. I had conflicting notes there. This question is actually for Ms. Mangoya and Mr. Hoffman. While accepting campaign funding from political action committees is entirely legal, do you feel that there would be a conflict of interest if individuals in the PAC could benefit from doing business with Cy-Fair ISD either as employees or the district or owners of businesses providing goods or services for the district? Ms. Mangoya.
I do not believe that there is a conflict. I am very proud to be supported by the Citizens for Effective Trustees in Cy-Fair ISD. You know what they stand for. They are looking for people who advocate for student success, to promote fiscal responsibility, to protect property values, attract and retain quality teachers, work as a team of 8, and treat all with civility and respect. I can't think of a better group to be supported by. I have been open to every community group that has called me and asked me if I would be interested in speaking to them. Just because someone gives you a donation doesn't mean that you're indebted to them. And I think that all of us in life have people that do favors for us. It doesn't mean that I would not make a good decision or that I would direct business to particular people. I am a person of integrity, and I know that I would be able to handle any of the ramifications from getting contributions from the PAC.
Mr. Hoffman.
Along with what Darcy has mentioned, you know, I'm a little disappointed to hear how some folks have characterized the Citizens for Effective Trustees in Cy-Fair. the overwhelming majority of these folks are your and my neighbors. The overwhelming contribution are $25 to $50. These are folks collectively who have centuries of experience in this community and have seen and been a part of the growth and development and the greatness of this community. And they are exercising their civil right in engaging themselves and making sure their voice is heard. I'm honored to have their support, and I am very proud of their civic duty.
This will be our last question of the evening, and this is for Ms. Wanjagi. According to your websites, you and Angela Wesley have been endorsed by Cy-Fair United and Conservative Coalition of Harris County. Who are these organizations and what do they represent?
Do you want me to go first? Okay. The Harris County Conservative Coalition is interested in making sure that as this limited government, making sure that we are fiscally conservative, that our tax dollars are put into good use. And so I interviewed for it, just like Darcy and Bill Morris did, and I'm very happy to have their endorsement. So.
Okay. Ms. Wesley, since you were also mentioned in this comment, feel free to elaborate or not. Just want to give you the opportunity. No? Okay. We've now come to the opportunity for closing remarks by each of the candidates. You will each have 2 minutes, and we'll go in reverse order from the opening remarks. So, Ms. Wesley?
Again, I want to tell and say thank you to everyone that came out tonight and those of you that are watching on CFTV. I am here for you. I am an advocate, and even though I'm an advocate for those with special needs, I am also an advocate for those of the gifted and talented and regular students, those that are athletes, those that love to draw, love theater arts, love school. I am a parent, I am a citizen, and I am a taxpayer. And I care about my children's education, and I hope I can count on your vote because we are bringing up the leaders of the new world, but of the country as well.
Mr. Hoffman?
Again, Jason, thank you for doing a great job this evening. And I also want to thank everybody for coming out and making a decision not to watch that old boring presidential debate, but coming out and checking us out. As we close this evening, I'll leave you with this. As you get into your cars, as you turn your television off, ask yourself a simple question, or several simple questions. Who's the best qualified to sit on the governing body of the state's third largest school district? Ask yourself, who's better equipped to manage this $729 million public organization? Think about the competence level necessary to answer to our taxpayers, our parents, and our community members. Think about the skill set needed to effectively govern a 14,000 employee operation. But most of all, think about who is best prepared from day one to provide a quality public education to over 110,000 deserving students who are depending on you to make the right decision. My name is Kevin Hoffman, and I can tell you that I stand willing, ready, and able to serve and ask you for your vote this evening. Thank you.
Ms. Wanjagi?
We live in a wonderful community where education is highly valued. Your presence here is evidence of that. I'm here today to ask for your vote. I pledge to always ask tough questions, to seek constructive, active partners wherever we can find them, to act on well-prepared and well-planned information. I have a passion for education, not just run for the board, but I've dedicated my whole career to it. I want to see our schools live up to their full potential. We need to improve our district's relationships with all community stakeholders, parents chief among them. We have tremendous intellectual capital within the borders of this school district, and we need to continue to capitalize on that by engaging them. This community engagement is a critical success factor for our school district. The school district belongs to us all of us, the parents, the business leaders, belongs to us all. Parental and community input is extremely important, and our schools will not be successful without it. I firmly believe that working together, we can take our already wonderful schools to higher levels. But to go to that next level, we cannot continue to do business as usual. We cannot get there as a community if the basis of selecting the board is belonging to a select group of hand-picked members. The PAC has done a wonderful job of picking very highly qualified candidates, and I commend them for that, but I do want to say that they do not have exclusivity on effectiveness. Diversity of thought is a very important idea. Being able to leverage these multiple perspectives is key to creating a successful board. This is well exemplified in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Most of you have probably read that, where he says that indeed one of the most crucial elements in taking an organization from good to great is somewhat paradoxical. You need people who, on one hand, argue and debate, sometimes violently, in pursuit of the best answers, yet on the other hand, who unify behind a decision, regardless of personal interests. Please allow me the opportunity to bring these different and new ideas to the table with the existing board that's already doing a great job, so that together with the current board members, the teachers, administration, parents, and our very engaged community, we can lead our district to new heights of academic excellence. Thank you.
Mrs. Mangoya.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I have a long history of service to this community. It's given me a great perspective as a parent and as a community member and as a business person. I've had a lot of opportunity to work in teams and to lead those teams to successes. I am very anxious to serve Cy-Fair. I believe that it is the greatest district in the state, if not the country, and I think I bring a great perspective and a great willingness to work and a great deal of energy. I hope you'll seriously consider voting for me on November 6th. Early voting starts October 22nd. It's really the most convenient way to go. And I am looking forward to serving as your trustee.
To conclude tonight's forum, and for my closing remarks, on behalf of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District and residents within this community, thank you for your willingness to step forward and volunteer for this high responsibility and low-paying elected position, as Kevin mentioned. I want to wish each of you best of luck. Thank you to the existing Board of Trustees for your continued service to our students and to the employees of this great district. Thank you, Donna, Kelly, and Marty, for your help this evening. Thank you to the Cy-Fair ISD School District for putting on tonight's forum, giving the community an opportunity to learn more about each candidate. For those in attendance this evening, please remind your friends and neighbors about the importance of casting their vote on or before November 6th. Early voting begins Monday, October 22nd. Have a great trip home. Hopefully the weather has stopped raining. And have a great night.